Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is April the 18th, 2024. Hopefully, this episode finds you well in good spirits and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Thursday was good to me. No complaints. Let's see. Work was fine. Nothing too crazy. Nothing too magical. They didn't feed us any corn dogs today. Let's see. Food corner from last night. I made chili mac, which I posted it and then kind of realized that like people from out of town just look at that shit so funny. Um, One of my friends hit me up and they were like, "This is the most sense and nastiest thing I've ever seen," which I just took as a compliment because I mean that's true. It is real. Some people don't like chili and macaroni pasta together. I don't know. They'll call me crazy for that. To me, that's normal. It's fine, you know. But it was good. I enjoyed it. It was a good meal. I had a bolillo roll and a cinnamon raisin bagel with it on the side. And I'm sure you're thinking that's such a weird ass fucking combination. And you're right, sure, fine, but like it worked out. It was good. I enjoyed it. But yeah, I guess that's how we do it around here a little bit. I will say I'm a bit of an outlier. I can be a little bit weird with the scran, but I'm sure if you're a long time listener, you know I like to put weird foods together and then put them in my mouth. But yeah, that's pretty much it on all the Joneses. Let me go ahead and do my startup, and we'll go and get into some news. All right, our first story comes from Reuters. 17 killed in Ukraine's Chernihiv in Russia's deadliest airstrike in weeks. Three Russian missiles slammed into the city center of Chernihiv in northern Ukraine on Wednesday, killing at least 17 people, wounding dozens more, and damaging civilian buildings, officials said. President Vladimir Zelensky called on Kyiv's allies to rush in air defense support after the city, which had a pre-war population of 300,000, became the largest target of an intensifying Russian airstrike campaign. This would not have happened if Ukraine had sufficient air defense equipment and if the world's determination to counter Russian terror had been sufficient. Zelensky wrote on the Telegram messaging app, which I feel like is a very spicy reply. I mean, every so often we'll hear Zelensky kind of pop off like this. I feel like it's kind of been like the only response that you kind of been hearing out of Ukraine, especially since the U.S. has kind of stalled on support. A little bit of side news to that. I know Mike Johnson, our favorite bag of potato person, he's been trying. He feels like it is his Christian duty to get these motherfuckers the lethal aid that they need, Ukraine and Israel. Ugh. But he's determined to make this shit happen, even if it might potentially means his speaker ship. I think you can say it that way. His career as speaker. But we'll see. We have no idea how that's gonna go. But that is a bit of an update to start it off on a war front. Let's go ahead and hit the next thing. I feel like I got a packed episode. I want to hit the stuff, stick and move, if you will. From Vox, Boeing's problems were as bad as you thought. Boeing went under the magnifying glass at not one but two Senate hearings today, examining allegations of deep-seated safety issues plaguing the once revered plane manufacturer. Witnesses, including two whistleblowers, painted a disturbing picture of a company that cut corners, ignored problems, and threatened employees who spoke up. Let's see here. I kind of want to move ahead. The second hearing put a spotlight on two whistleblowers, and this is really the focus of what I really wanted to get to. let's see here, Boeing quality engineer Sam Salpour and former Boeing engineer Ed Pearson. Now, Salpour had been, I heard about him last week. He was apparently a whistleblower who had been saying a lot of stuff about the 787, so much so they moved into the 777, I think that's a Dreamliner. He then spoke up about that, and he's like, yo, you guys are not listening to me. And like leading up to him, being vocal and speaking out, is he's more or less just been saying like, hey, like it's gotten so bad that there are now been like physical threats made against me. Um, and then also former Boeing engineer Ed Pearson, who I indirectly mentioned before in a previous episode. He was on the Ben and Emil show, and he had like a really extensive interview with them that like was really illuminating to me. I would suggest you check that out if you're interested in this whole Boeing conundrum. But I mean, he more or less in the hearing just said like what these guys are doing is just flat out criminal. Like I know that they have the data that they are like saying we can't find. I know they have it because I've given some of this data to the FBI. So I mean that's big. I feel like, and the main reason I waited this week to talk about it as opposed to like last week when it became news, because I wanted to hear what they were gonna say and like what the evidence was. And they definitely had some things to say. It's very interesting to kind of hear that like they were literally like these like hairline type of gaps in the plane that he noticed in about 98.7, I believe, percent of the planes that he was like, looking at and surveying. And Boeing is like, no, we vehemently deny this. No way. We stress test all our stuff. We have that on the records. You know that. And he's saying, no, you did that on older models. I'm talking about newer models that you did not actually put up for these tests. And I know they have these issues. I've seen them. And this was data that I kind of wanted to see. And they didn't necessarily bring it out in the hearing, but they did say that they submitted it to politicians. So, I'll take them on their word at that. But definitely it's pretty damning stuff. And then hearing like too how like engineers were literally having like to force fit parts together to make a Boeing, be a Boeing plane. And it's like, that's not how that's supposed to go. Like, it's almost like this childlike, like, we have to get this done, like desperation. Like, we have to, I know the pieces fit. Like, and you force this together, and now it's like, oh shit, someone could die on this plane midair. You know what I mean? And to some extent, you can understand how these employees are like just being whipped into doing this kind of shit. And like anytime someone speaks out, they're just ignored or potentially threatened either with, loss of your job or you're relocated or potentially even your life. I mean, we talked about the Barnett situation. Man died of quote unquote suicide in his car, right after or in between the deposition for this shit. So I can understand why Selfor is scared for not just himself, his family. Like, it's real shit. I mean, it's crazy. We talked a lot this year about Boeing, in terms of like these planes just like losing door plugs and fucking engines and things of that nature. And I mean, sure, you can say, well, I mean, some of these planes are a bit older. These things are gonna happen, and there's nothing perfect in this world, what have you. But that shit's scary, and it's even scarier knowing that these motherfuckers cut corners, to make sure that these planes, got done. And not to mention, it's even scarier when you know that the FAA is saying like, okay, we can't even like really handle you guys. So like, could you guys like regulate yourself and like, we'll call it cool. And it's like, okay, fine. And then it's like the regulators they have are just like, they're just having them cut corners on that shit. And like, things just still keep falling through the cracks. It's just such a scary ass fucking situation. And, I can understand why that breeds just this, this fear right now that I think is going into the, aviation industry right now. It's scary. People like, I've said this before, people are checking to see, hey, what kind of plane am I going to be on? I just want to know, is it one of those Boeing 7, whatevers? Is it a bad one? Is it a good one? I just want to know, food for thought. That was something that people a year or two ago were never doing. They did not care. Unless you were like a plane freak and you just wanted to know that shit just because you wanted to know what plane you were on because you thought it was cool, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I did find this illuminating. I kind of sat on this story for about a week. So, glad to roll it out, even though, once again, I wish there was more concrete data that was available to look at. I mean, not that I'd be showing you. Y'all know I'm a lazy ass podcaster, but just my own personal thing. I'd like to, hear what this what's in this Pandora's box of information, what this evidence is. I'm a curious George, if you will. All right, let's go ahead and hit the next beat. I can tell this is going to be a riffing episode, like most are. Let's hit the next article, which is from the BBC. Kenya doctor strike. The public caught between the medics and the government. Let's see if it scrolls down here. Having some technical issues. Let's try to load up the page again. Okay, we're back. Most of the beds at the labor ward of Kihara Level 4 Hospital on the outskirts of the Kenyan capital, Nairobi, are empty. Only 3 are occupied out of more than a dozen. A nurse says the hospital is not taking in women who need a cesarean as there is no doctor to perform the operation. The doctors here and across the country have been on strike for about a month now. Excuse me. Public hospitals are virtually empty. There is an unsettling silence in places normally brimming with people seeking a host of critical services. Patients are now forced to go to expensive private hospitals or delay treatment, resulting in worsening chronic illnesses and sometimes deaths. Doctors are striking over a number of issues, including pay and the failure to hire trainee doctors who cannot qualify without getting an intern position. The medics are aware of the problems the strike is causing, but argue that industrial action is necessary to help the public get quality health care in the long run, as their working conditions and lack of equipment mean they cannot treat patients properly, says Davji Bhimji, the Secretary General of the Doctors Union, KMPDU. Sometimes we are just there to supervise death, he tells the BBC. President William Ruto has asked the striking doctors to return to work and agree to the offer that the government has made, saying the country must live according to our means. They've been really trying to say, hey, we literally cannot meet the mandates you want us to meet. We cannot actually give you the money that you want. And like, they had an agreement in 2017. This agreement has kind of run out, and that's why we're at this strike. And they're like, yo, what you were trying to pay us is less than even then. So like, we cannot make this deal with you guys, despite you saying like you're being amenable here. Like, you need to come back to the table and work with us for a real deal. Like, we need these things that we're asking for. We can't really compromise any lower, or we at least can't make this compromise that you're asking. And essentially then it gets kicked back to the government. They're not coming to the table. And, of course you have patients who are caught in the middle here. And that's very unfortunate. That's very sad. Because I do think overall people can understand the situation at hand. I think there's a lot of economic crises going on around the world, and like, we're all trying to like get by and make do. I know in America it's bad, but I also know, like, let's say talking about Argentina, it's way fucking worse. And you could like, pick a country, pick a spot, and it's like, oh yeah, we're going through a real bad. Jobs are bad for here. Why? I mean, actually talking about this specific doctor strike immediately gives me deja vu to South Korea, which we've talked about, and how they almost have like a little bit of the opposite but similar problem, where they're like, okay, we'll give you all the interns, we'll flood the market. And it's like, okay, but like, we're still not getting the pay, so that's still a problem, so we still have to go on strike. And then once again, that just breeds that kind of like confusion and potential distrust and like division between like the patients and, the doctors who are trying to strike for what they need. And people think, oh, you're just being a greedy, senior top guy. And it's like, no, like, they're fighting for the things that they deserve, just like anybody fucking else that we talk about on this podcast. You know what I mean? So obviously I'm with these doctors who are striking. I can just understand how this is a very, tricky, sticky wicket that everyone's fucking in right now. And I don't know, I want to point the finger at the government, be like, you guys can pay it. But who knows these days? Sometimes you really do open the government's coffers, and these motherfuckers got shit all. And maybe that's a problem, and it's from corruption or whatever the fucking reason. But regardless, the money might not actually be there. And then how do we make this work for these doctors who, are in these hospitals? You know what I mean? So I get that there's not an easy fix, as much as I would like to just pull a fucking my podcaster's wand out of my ass and just be like, this is what you do, Baba Gazoo. But I can't do that, and I'm not gonna pretend to tell you how to get out of this. But I definitely just wanted to highlight the problem, at least in the way that I could, through yapping. We'll read this portion a little bit. Let's see. The government set a new figure at $540 or £430 a month, but the union says 1,600 had been agreed to for pay and allowances in the deal. Just kind of talking about saying like, hey, we had things set up in place, and like now what you're telling us is like it's a fraction of that. Like there's no way we're gonna stay at the table and say this is okay. Yeah, we're fine with this. Like no, thank you for the interns and stuff, but we need more. And I imagine that's not dealing with the actual equipment issue, which I imagine is also a financial thing. So. I get it. There's a lot. And this has been going on for a few weeks now. I didn't really know about it until a few days ago. So I was like, let me not miss the coverage. Let's talk about it. Okay. So we did that. That's done. Let's hit the next thing. Let's hit the b-ball court. Let's do some basketball. Basketball. I'm talking basketball. Okay. From Yahoo Sports, Jonte Porter receives lifetime ban from NBA for violating gambling rules. Psych, this is about gambling. Gamba. Actually, a question to the audience. Do you consider poker a sport? Because I don't know. I saw it on ESPN back in the day as a kid, so I want to say that poker is a sport. I feel like if we're saying that fishing is a sport, I think you can say poker is a sport. That's neither here nor there. I know we're supposed to be talking about basketball and like DraftKings and shit, but you know me. You know how my mind wanders. Jonte Porter of the Toronto Raptors has been given a lifetime ban by the NBA for violating the league's gambling policy. The NBA released a statement Wednesday announcing and explaining its ruling. A league investigation found that Porter violated league rules by disclosing confidential information to sports bettors, limiting his own participation in one or more games for sports betting purposes, and betting on NBA games, the statement read. The NBA's investigation found that Porter purposely limited his participation in the Raptors' March 20th game against the Sacramento Kings, specifically to influence the outcome of one or more bets on his performance against the Nets. Porter claimed he felt ill after playing just 3 minutes. The NBA also found that prior to the game, Porter disclosed confidential information about his health status to an individual he knew to be an NBA bettor. A different individual associated with Porter also bet that Porter would underperform March 20th as part of an $80,000 parlay the bettor placed with an online sports book. Now, I gotta come clean here. I've never done any kind of betting. I'm not a gambler. I just like watching. I love watching motherfuckers gamble. It's just so fun. But I get that this has been a big phenomenon, especially as of what I say that like it's a reinventing of the wheel. But in some ways, it kind of is. Like I know Ohio was different when we finally opened up the online betting. Like all of a sudden, my homies were at the Super Bowl and they were looking at their phones, and I'm like, this is different. Normally, y'all are glued to the game, and it's like, we got parlays to hit, motherfucker. And I'm like, what are y'all talking about? Is this Pirates of the Caribbean? I don't know what you mean. But essentially, what I mean is it's warped a lot now, where I've heard stories where it's like, you literally hear people being harassed about like, hey, like, people are hitting up my Facebook or my Instagram or whatever, and they're telling me to miss a 3-point shot because they got fucking numbers on the line. And I'm like, that's insane. Like, I did not have that on my bingo card. I didn't know that was a thing, but it makes sense. You know what I mean? People gotta fucking get their bread, and they don't care if you're the next fucking Larry Bird. Miss the fucking shot. But it's crazy then to see the players who are breaking this like golden taboo rule. You know what I mean? Potentially betting on anything. Like, you're not supposed to do that. Like, Pete Rose taught us that you get caught with your hand in this shit at all, it's Jover for you. And it definitely seems like the NBA is not playing a fucking around. You know what I mean? And this is not a golden boy Shohei Otani thing. Not that I'm saying he is implicated or guilty. I'm just saying, like, crazy my guy did not have an interpreter. You definitely need one of those if you're going to. No, I should stop. But this is big news in its own sense. That's why obviously I wanted to cover it. I'm not a big basketball guy. This isn't a sports podcast, of course. If you're new here, I'm sorry. I led you astray. I can't help myself. I do want to read a section here. Let's see. From January through March of 2024, while traveling with the Raptors and the Raptors G League team, Porter placed at least 13 bets on NBA games using someone else's betting account. These bets ranged from $15 to $22,000 for a total of $54,094. The total payout from these bets was $76,059, resulting in winnings of $21,965. None of the bets involved any games in which Porter played, but he did bet on the Raptors to lose as part of 3 different parlay bets. All 3 bets lost. Now, maybe I'm wrong here, but I do feel like people don't really care. Like, maybe a league cares, like a sports organization, maybe once again a draft gambling organization cares, but really the community don't care. They don't really give a shit about the a player gambling in general, but they do care if you're gambling on your league, on your team. Those kind of things are like a huge fucking like, oh dude, how could you do this? Because of the situation of like, you really are fucking with the fabric of the game, I think, to them. I mean, to my dumbass, once again, I think you guys have heard some of my dumbass sports takes. Some of them I don't really feel like are that dumb. But like, I don't care. Like, at the end of the day, if you're gonna gamble. I think you're crazy to throw a game for money and think you're gonna get away with that shit. They're going to find you out. So you should be smart enough to not do that. So I would think just gambling in general, like, it's just a civilian thing. You should be allowed to do whatever. But I get it. I completely understand why there are barriers here to stop this slippery slope from happening. So you don't get a Porter. You know what I mean? So you don't get this fucking shit happening. So you don't get a whole team throwing a game so they can get real fucking money. Not that they're not getting paid enough, whatever. I know. There's a lot of money. They're paid, blah, 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 whatever. But yeah, I found this very interesting. It's crazy. Kind of listening to some stories, like I think it was ABC News, just kind of talking about how this is something that's on the rise. Like, it's not just the Shohei Otani. It's not just this story. There have been other people who have been kind of caught lately doing this kind of shit. So it's just like, oh, okay, wow, this really is something that's on the rise, and technically maybe something that people were kind of worried about, warning about. Not me. I really had no care or concern about this shit, whatever. But yeah, interesting all the same. I want to see if there's anything else I didn't miss shit. I ain't missed nothing. All right, we have one more thing I wanted to cover, and that was nervous laughter. This is a doozy. Man, I thought I gave you guys Weekend at Bernie's 2, the Ohio story. Now we're going international. Weekend at Bernie's 3, baby. Coming the fuck up. Get ready. Come to Brazil. All right, let me do my last break and we'll get into it. Oh, that hit the spot. Ooh. From the Independent. Woman arrested for wheeling corpse into bank to co-sign a loan. Ay, ay, ay. A Brazilian woman has been arrested, excuse me, after she strolled into a bank, pushing a corpse she hoped would co-sign a loan for her. Disturbing video captured by bank employees in the Bangu neighborhood of Rio de Janeiro shows Erica de Souza Vieira we're going to go with Vieira Nunes bringing the body of Paulo Roberto Braga into the bank branch. The Daily Beast reported. Braga had died at the age of 68 just a few hours earlier. In the video, Miss Nunez is reportedly heard calling Braga her uncle as she spoke to the body and propped up his head. She also asked him to co-sign a loan for approximately $3,400, the New York Post reported. Uncle, are you listening? You need to sign the contract. If you don't sign, there's no way because I can't sign for you, Miss Nunez says in the footage. She then grabs a pen and forces it into the dead man's hands, telling the corpse to hold the pen hard. Sign so you don't have to give me any more headaches. I can't take it anymore, she says. At one point in the video, a worker points out that the man looks ill and that his color is unusual, but Miss Nunez waves off his concerns. He is like that. He doesn't say anything, Miss Nunez replies. Uncle, do you want to go to the hospital again? The bank staffers ultimately called law enforcement, which is just like, yeah, girl. Like, and I thought about this when I was like kind of perusing the story at the top of the day. I was like, dude, this is like these kind of stories happen when like you have a maxed out charisma stat as a human being and like you just believe in yourself so much. Like you just believe that people will believe you. They believe in you. There's just nothing that can stop you. You are light and what path you are walking on is golden. I don't know. I would like to think I have a decent enough charisma, at least enough to yap into a microphone and think people are going to listen. But like, goddamn, not a weekends at Bernie's situation. Okay, no, I'm going to give up the ghost. And I get it. Maybe Miss Nunez really needs the money. Maybe they are related. That's still something that's in the wind. We have no idea. If I find out, I will definitely let you know. But like at this point, she just had the moxie to say, "Hey, I'm just gonna get this check. I'm just gonna get this bag real quick." And they're like, "Man, we're calling the cops. He's dead. He's not alive. He does not. No." So, I mean, a crazy story. I cannot believe we really upped the ante in the same year. Like, it's one thing to try to do this shit and he's like in the car. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's so much better. Like a person can still look dead in the car. Obviously, that didn't work. Oh man. But like to do it where you're wheeling the person into the thing. And I should get to the end of the story and we can close out. Let's see here. The facts did not occur as has been narrated. Paul was alive when he arrived at the bank. Ana Carla de Souza Correa, Miss Nunez's lawyer, told reporters. All of this will be cleared up. We believe in Erica's innocence. That's a quote. I do not believe in you, Erica. I think you were just bold. And, I mean, I'll give you credit for that. Because that's wild that you tried that you tried this for the lick. But hey, I mean, sometimes you just gotta get your bag, dead or alive. So, it just is what it is, y'all. But that's it. That's really where I'm gonna leave it. If you'd like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Isaiah News. Become a newsie today. Let's see, free ways to hit me up, send some feedback, answer some of my questions, comments, concerns, or, send me some, my way, whatever you got. IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or, the podcast on any of the socials. I'm on X. And then, let's see, the YouTube really helps out a lot. Let's get to 69 subscribers. That's my goal. Okay. That's my goal for the spring, summer session is let's get to 69. Let's 69, y'all. I think it's about time. Also, I'm trying to get that on the Spotify. So go ahead and be a follower there if you're not. Really just hit all the buttons everywhere. Just paw at them. You know what I mean? You see a share button, hit that. You see a like button, hit that. You want to leave like a cool comment? That would be so dope. Just hit that, hit enter. I would love to see that. But yeah, that's it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend. And hopefully I'll see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.